You learn a lot in your scuba certification class, but there's also a lot of practical things that you don't learn. And I want to share some of these things with you because these are the things that I wish I knew when I first started diving, but I didn't. Now, my first one up, let's get this out of the way, is those sharks aren't going to eat or bite you. I know when my then boyfriend, now husband, first proposed that we get our scuba certification, I looked at him like he was crazy. And the first thing I said was, I don't want to see any sharks. And what did I see in my first certification dive? You got it, a shark. But lo and behold, I survived. Now, I'm not talking great whites. I'm talking about the much more common nurse and reef sharks. And I've gone on to see many, many sharks during my diving career. And since then, I have come to appreciate the beautiful creatures that they are. Of course, when I first saw it, my heart was beating so quickly, I thought I was going to hyperventilate. But take my word for it, they're just beautiful creatures and they're not going to harm you. You don't harm them. Which leads me to my next thing I wish I knew before I started diving. Now, on my first open water dive, after I got certified, we saw a shark sleeping under this little outcropping of coral. Now, this particular dive master was one of those stereotypical dive masters that kind of looked like he dropped out of society and was just hiding in the islands. Well, he probably wasn't hiding, but you know what type I mean. So he calls me over and he takes my hand. I didn't know why. It was my first dive. I didn't know what was going on. He takes my hand and he proceeds to have me pet this shark. Now, I was in shock. I didn't want to see a shark, much less pet a shark, and I didn't know any better. Do not touch anything underwater, especially marine life. I never should have been touching that shark. I know that now. You don't want to touch anything underwater, any of the marine life, any of the coral, just leave it be. It's that old saying, look but don't touch. Now, my next scuba tip for beginners that I didn't know when I first started diving was don't fight the surges. When I first started diving, I'd get in a surge and I'd go like this. I'd be kicking the whole way. Then the surge goes back and I'd be kicking the whole way. Surge go up, I'd be kicking the whole way and back and forth. And I'm kicking the whole way and I'm really not getting that far. So what I have since learned is you just go with the surge. When the surge goes forward, do your kick. And then when it comes back, just relax. Let your breathing slow down. And then next time the surge comes forward, just kick into the surge. And that will bring you past your last point of forward momentum. So you slowly make your way up past the surge. But when I first started diving, I didn't know this. I was kicking the whole time, wasting a whole lot of air, and you do not want to do that. So just go with the surge and kick and relax on the way back. Go with the surge and kick and relax on the way back. And now another thing I didn't realize when I first started diving was really how addictive it can be. After we got our certification, it had to be years before we took a vacation that wasn't centered around diving. And it brought us to beautiful places and I loved it. But go see something that didn't have an opportunity to go diving? Nope, I wasn't going there. Seriously though, I should look up how many years it took before I took a vacation that wasn't geared around diving. Now you have been forewarned. Now my next scuba tip for beginners, and what I didn't know, although this one is a little bit harder, is don't be intimidated. When you first start diving, it can be intimidating getting on that dive boat because you think everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone has thousands of dives under their belt except you. But it's not true. And even if it does, it doesn't matter. Just relax, think about you, think about your dive. Don't worry about anyone else except of course your dive buddy, and have fun with it. Just remember, everybody was a beginner once. Even that guy next to you that has 10,000 dives, he one point had 0 dives. So he's just in a different point in his career than you are. So don't worry about it. Just concentrate on yourself, concentrate on what you can be doing underwater, and you'll be much more relaxed and have a much more pleasurable dive. And this leads me into my next tip of what I didn't know, or what I wasn't more comfortable with, I guess is a more accurate way to describe it, and that is to don't be afraid to ask any questions, whether it be of the dive master, your fellow divers, whatever. If you have any questions about the dive plan, about the gear setup, about facilities on the boat, or what have you, don't be afraid to ask. There are no stupid questions, and dive masters and crew have probably years of experience, so there's probably nothing that they haven't heard before, so don't worry about it. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it. And this goes especially for your dive briefing. If you have any questions about what's going to happen underwater, ask on the surface, because the last thing you want to do is be unsure of what to do or what the plan is once you are underwater. So go ahead, ask away, and feel more confident once you do get in the water. Now, another tip for beginning scuba divers, I didn't realize at first that you're going to look like a yo-yo in the water for quite a few dives. It takes a while to get comfortable with your buoyancy control and your air consumption, and you're going to be going up and down in that water column, but don't worry, because it is normal. And buoyancy control is probably one of the hardest skills to master for new divers. And you will get better with each dive. It's just a matter of time. Everyone goes through it. No one is born at neutral points, at least that I know of. So on your downtime, read some articles or watch some videos that have buoyancy control tips. And the most important thing then, of course, is to implement them on your next dive. So you do get neutrally buoyant in a fewer amount of dives. And yes, I do have some videos on buoyancy control and air consumption. I'll link to them in the description down below. But of course, the point is to use them on your next dive so you look less like a yo-yo and use less air. Now, another thing I wish I knew before I started diving is that diving at night isn't scary. It seems that way at first because who wants to jump off a perfectly good boat into a deep, dark black hole? But it really isn't like that. Most night dives start at dusk, so you're really not in the dark right away. And it does get darker, obviously, as you are underwater, but everything is coming out. It's a whole different world underwater at night, and you'll be amazed at what you will see and how different it will be from what you see during the day. But if you think it's going to be totally scary and you don't want to go, just think about that, because you'll be doing yourself a disservice if you just cut out all night dives and don't try that on your diving career. And I have some tips for night diving also, and I'll link to that video in the description below. Now, another tip for beginning scuba divers is to leave the camera and any other unnecessary accessories on the shore. I know you're excited. You want to get a video of all the fish you see or the coral you're seeing and all the beautiful sights underwater, but that can wait. When you first dive, you just want to concentrate on yourself. You want to concentrate on your buoyancy control. You want to concentrate on your air consumption. And once you have those under control, then by all means, bring that camera and those other accessories in. But first, when you first start diving, just keep it simple. Just dive and work on improving your skills. Because if you don't have buoyancy control and you're trying to get that shot, and I've seen it numerous times, you're going to be going up and down. You're going to be bumping into coral. You're going to be damaging the coral. And it really just isn't a good scenario. So leave everything at home except for your essentials. And then once you do get everything under control and you're nice and neutrally buoyant, then bring in that camera, other accessories for you to use. And another thing I wish I knew before I started scuba diving is that you don't have to be glued to your diving partner. I must have driven my husband crazy because I was like on him like a rock our first dives. And actually, in all, when I think back on, I was too close because he very easily could have kicked my regular out of my mouth because I was right on top of him. But as long as you're close to your dive buddy, obviously you always want to be close. You don't want to be far away because if something happens, you want to be able to get your dive buddy quickly. So you don't want to be over there wandering, looking at something where your dive buddy's all the way over there. You want to be close, but you don't have to be like this. You can be like this. It's okay. And I always take a tank banger as a signaling device to get my husband's attention also, even if I just want to show him something. But it also works if something does happen and I need him to assist me in whatever way. And he has one also, so he can get my attention. But that's not to say you can stray from your dive buddy. Stay close to your dive buddy. I'm just saying you don't have to be so close like him on glue. Give yourself a little breathing room and it'll be okay. Now, my next scuba tip for beginners, and what I didn't know when I first started diving, was to move slowly. There is so much to see when you move slowly and look in the coral and look in the little crevices. When I first started diving, I know I went much too quickly and didn't take the time to appreciate all that you can see as you're floating by. Like you might see a shrimp in a fish's mouth cleaning it at a cleaning station. You might see a nudie branch hanging out on the coral. But if you're just concentrating on going a little bit quicker or maybe even looking out to the deep blue, you're going to miss all this wonderful life that there is down there to see. So if you find yourself racing along, just remember to stop, breathe, look around, and appreciate everything that there is. Even those little things, they can be beautiful too. Now, another thing I wish I knew before I started scuba diving was that all dive masters, instructors, dive shops are not created equal. And a case in point is that dive master I told you about before that had me pet the shark. Another dive master I had would probably thrash the guy. Well, you know what I mean. So you want to try and read reviews of dive shops and dive masters and make sure you get the best one you can. And ask some questions of the dive shop, like how many people are on the boat, how many people are in the group, because it does make a big difference on how comfortable you are in that boat and during the dive. And if it doesn't seem right to you, if you don't get a good feeling or there's too many people in the group, just move on to the next dive shop, assuming of course there is another dive shop to move on to. And occasionally, yes, you will get the not so great dive master like I had, but just chalk it down to experience if you do get that and just move on to the next dive. Now, before I get on to the next thing I wish I knew before I started scuba diving, I want to ask you if you are getting any value out of this video to please like like or subscribe because it does help my little channel here and it keeps me going making some videos for you. And thanks in advance if you do. And hey, it's free. Now, another scuba diving tip for beginning divers is it's okay to be nervous. Just realize it's normal because this is all new to you. And as you get ready to go diving again, you might feel a little nerves, but just realize that that is normal. And it will probably help you because that makes you more vigilant of making sure your gear is set up right. You know exactly what the dive plan is, and you're just going to be more cognizant of what happens as you go underwater. And I will admit, in all honesty here, if I start diving again, after I haven't dove for a while, if I've had some time off, I do get a little nervous before my first time into that water. So you are not alone if you are a little bit nervous. It is a normal feeling. And that leads me to probably one of the most important things I didn't know before I started scuba diving, and I really want to share with you. And that is, don't have to follow the dive master everywhere. Now, I don't mean go off on your own and don't follow him on the designated dive plan. What I mean is, don't follow him to some situation that you aren't trained for or that you aren't comfortable doing. And of course, this ties into my other tip that not all dive masters are created equal. And I will give you an example of what happened to me and my husband. And in all honesty, it didn't happen that long ago. Now, I listened to the dive briefing closely, or so I thought, as I always do. Now, I know the dive master said we were going to this cave/tunnel. I don't remember the exact wording he used, but I'm assuming I think it was just a swim through like we usually go through. Now, I'm used to going through swim throughs. I've done a lot. Usually there's 2 exits. You can see one in the back, you can see one in the front for the most part. But on this particular dive, the dive master waves us into this narrow passageway. And it was in an overhead environment. It ended in this dead end, I guess, cavern type room, which wasn't that big. Now, the thing about this, there was only one way in and one way out. And all the divers were coming in at the same time. And it was getting crowded in there. Now, I don't know if I'm conveying this properly, but all I could think was, this is disaster waiting to happen. We never should have been in there. If one of those divers panicked, I can only imagine what would have happened. And people are kicking, it's a sandy bottom, so the viz is going down. And if someone starts flailing, they could easily hit another diver, knock the mask off, knock the regulator out, and I can just see a domino effect happening, and I was not happy. And I got out of there as soon as I could. There is nothing worth seeing that is worth your safety. And my husband and I are out at the entrance of the cave, like looking at each other like, what was that all about? Why did we just go there? We never should have been in there. And we take full responsibility for doing so. We should have been clear before going in. I should have known what we're going into, but I was just taken by surprise. If I had realized, my husband and I would have waited at the entrance to the cave, let the divers go in and wait for them to come out, and then no harm, no foul for us anyway. So a lesson for you and the lesson for me is always be aware where the dive master is taking you. And if you are not comfortable, don't go in. For example, if they're penetrating a wreck and you don't have any wreck experience, you're not comfortable going in there, don't go in there. You can wait outside the wreck and wait for the dive group to come back. Of course, conditions allowing, because whatever is worth seeing, it is not worth your safety. Always remember that. The most important point in this video, there is nothing worth seeing that is worth your safety. And that leads me to another thing I didn't know before I was scuba diving, and I think all beginner divers should implement, and that is to practice the what if scenario. So that means think of a situation of what would happen and what would you do if that scenario occurred. For instance, what if your regulator fell out of your mouth? What would you do? Maybe you do the back arm sweep until you get it back in. But whatever scenario you can imagine, you should always be thinking of what would happen if this happened and what would I do to correct the situation. And obviously you do this before you get on the dive boat. And then so if it does happen, you have the solution in your mind already, and then it should be much more easy for you to get yourself out of the situation and handle it nice and calmly and safely. Now, this video, beginning tips for scuba divers, some of the polite things I wish I knew before I started diving. But if you want to hear some of the gross things that they don't teach you in certification class and that I didn't know before I started diving, watch this video right here, because they don't teach you this in certification class either. Now, you're probably wondering these questions that I answered in this video, but you might have been too embarrassed to ask. But don't worry, I answer them for you. So thanks for watching, and happy and safe diving.